Hello and welcome to Bad Dice. In this episode I'm going to be talking about Beastclaw Raiders, the new Battletome from Games Workshop. This is basically a redo of some of the ogre units. The Stonehorn, Thundertusk, Mournfangs, Yetis, Saber-tusks and Hunters are all in this Battletome, and it's pretty good. I'm really impressed with what they've managed to do with an existing model range, which I wouldn't have, if I had to bet on which one was going to be getting a faction book like this, I wouldn't have said it was the Beastclaws. I thought they might have done Gutbusters instead, and this would have been, I don't know, maybe one of the later ones I thought they'd done, but they've reimagined them, they've got new fluff, they've got some amazing new artwork. They've also rejigged the models in the range, similar to what they did with the Flesh Eater Cores, and you can now build some different unit options from existing kits. So let's get into it and we'll talk a bit about what's in the actual book. So one of the things I'm going to talk about this time, which I didn't do for Bone Splitters and the previous book before that we talked about, is drill down into the fluff and the backstory a bit more, because these are really cool. I'm very impressed with how they've took the original story of the ogres, which is all about the Moor and worship of the Great Moor, and they've changed it up to fit really well into the Immortal Realms. So the way the Beastclaws work is they're basically a rampaging, always, they've still got the hunger aspect, they're ogres, they want to eat, but they're also warlike and very destruction-like. They leave just devastation in the path. They're riding on the brink of what's called the Everwinter, like an eternal storm, which is in part brought by them and also in part they're fleeing from, and they're always riding ahead of. And when the Beastclaw Raiders come, the storm comes with them, and when they pass, there's utter devastation in their wake, sometimes taking centuries for the lands to thaw out after the storm's been through. And they've done a real good job of changing what was essentially a bunch of fat blokes that worshipped a hole in a mountain, or whatever the Moor was previously, to now these guys are worshipping Gorkamorka, so they tie in very closely with the Oryx. There's talk of them in there with the Iron Jaws and how they've got a rivalry because of the different ways they worship Gorkamorka, and they do it in their own way. And Beastclaws have been reimagined into that. Now, what's also very cool is they've changed how the whole faction works and how you build an army. Now, your Frostlord is basically your big boss man, and he's in charge of all the tribe. He's kind of the tyrant of old, but he's now, the Frostlord is the guy at the top, and he rides a Stonehorn or a Thundertusk, and he leads what's called the Alfrosten, or however we want to pronounce that. And the Alfrosten is basically the whole army marching to war and looking for the next meal, the next fight, and the next place to bring destruction and devastation. There's a bit in there about how he builds his army and how the faction is organised, and he has basically his left hand and his right hand Huskars. They're his like second in command, and the Jawlbad is like the force organisation of his spear tip, his vanguard, the people who go out there and do the crushing. These are the Stonehorns, the Mournfang cavalry, and the Earlbad is the more defensive aspect. They've still got the Mournfang packs, but they've got the Thundertusks in there as well. Was it the other way around? It might be the other way around on that. And these kind of, one's going to smash and the other one's coming to clean up afterwards. And the way he trusts his Huskars to do the jobs, it's quite cool in the backstory. In the book, the rules side of things, there's some awesome warscroll battalions showing you how to build these units. So like your Earlbad, you get a Huskar on Stonehorn, 1 to 3 Stonehorn Beast Riders. Yes, that's right, that's rank and file Stonehorn units, which are actually battle line in matched play if you're Beastclaw Raiders Allegiance. And there's Allegiance abilities in there as well, which we'll get to in a minute. And then 2 to 4 Mournfang packs. And then there's, similar to the Bone Splitters and the Sylvaneth and things like that, you actually get Wargroves in the Sylvaneth, and in this it's called the Alfrostens, and different types of Alfrosten have different organisation charts. So you'll start with your Frostlord on a Stonehorn for the Svard Alfrosten, and he'll have 1 Jawlbad, as standard, but you can't just take a standard Jolbad, you'll have to upgrade it. So instead of having, I think it's 1 to 3 Stonehorn Beast Riders, you'll now have to have 3 to 9. That's a lot. Once you've took them, this unlocks extra abilities, and then you can add extra units as well. So you can end up with your whole army being in this single Alfroston, and you get extra abilities for that. So your Jolbad will give you, in addition to your allegiance abilities, you'll be able to run and charge and be immune to battle shock. And the Earlbad, which is more like the following up, the crushing and eating, I think they call them the fighting hand and the eating hand. They are they're going to get mortal wounds. They're going to dish out mortal wounds in addition to any other damage if they roll a 6 to wound. So that's quite cool. And then adding both of them into this Svard Alfroston gets you an extra allegiance ability on top of that, or sorry, an extra War Scroll Battalion ability on top of that, which gives you +1 wound to all Stonehorns, which is pretty cool. So if you've got your Frostlord on Stonehorn, you've got your Jolbad, which includes 3 to 9, and also your Earlbad, which I think that includes at least 1. So you could have a whole bunch of Stonehorns with a whole lot of wounds. Additionally, instead of taking a magic item which you can give to each of your heroes, well, 1 hero in your army plus an additional 1 for each War Scroll Battalion, and in this case, if you're taking the Alfroston, the Jolbad and the Earlbad, plus there's Torbad and a Skarl, which are 2 different types of formations, you can end up with 4 different magic weapons, but there's also the Hellwinter Vambrace as well, which basically gives you a 5+ save against mortal wounds, and that's just one of the battalions. There's also the Olweir Alfroston. I'm getting terrible at these words. I'll get all the Nordic chaps telling me how I should be pronouncing these. I should have asked the guys this week. We had a bunch of, I think it was 2 Swedes and a Norwegian chap came over to visit Warhammer World, but they came to the club to see us as well. So I should have asked those guys how to pronounce all this stuff. So that's some of the force and organisation and the backstory. So the thing that everyone wants to know is the allegiance abilities and stuff like that, and they're pretty cool. It's going to be tough, I think. You know, as these faction books keep coming out down the line, I can see problems with giving a faction an ability which is very cool and fitting with the faction, but is also in keeping on power level with other previous books, like the Sylvaneth being able to teleport through the forest and walk the hidden paths and things like that. That could be difficult to balance with something like the Bone Splitters, which is, you know, they're getting bonuses killing monsters. These have quite a good, the Beastclaw Raiders have quite a good allegiance abilities. They've got 2. So the first one is on the turn in which they charge, you can re-roll all wound rolls of a 1 for Beastclaw Raider models in the combat phase. So that's pretty good, you know, army-wide re-rolls on the charge, it's nice. And then the other one is Everwinter's Blessing. So as I said before, they've Everwinter's following them in, they're bringing the storm with them, they're bringing the frost and the ice. And you've got a table to roll on. So at the start of each of your hero phases, you roll, I think it's roll to see each unit that is within 3 inches of a Beastclaw Raider unit. So you roll a dice to see what happens to them. You roll the chart first, just a single dice roll to see what happens, and then you look down the chart. So 1 or 2, re-roll save rolls of 1 for all Beastclaw Raiders, which is cool because the Stonehorns got a good save, and there's no wizards in the book, so you're not going to be mystic shielding, so this is nice to buff your troops. So 3 to 4, all friendly Beastclaw Raider models can immediately move 3 inches as if it were the movement phase. They can't run when they do this, but they can run later in the turn. They can't retreat as well, so that's just kind of like the destruction trait anyway, which you could choose instead. But where it gets really interesting is number 5. Any enemy unit that is within 3 inches of a Beastclaw Raider model takes, on a roll of a 6, that unit takes D3 mortal wounds, which is quite tasty. And then Raging Blizzard is roll a dice for each enemy unit within 3. On a roll of a 6, they take D6 mortal wounds. So if you've slammed your whole army into an opponent's lines and there's multiple of your opponent's units near to yours, you're going to be rolling for every unit in their army if you can cover that many. And you're bound to get a couple of 6s pop up. doing possibly D6 mortal wounds. So it's quite nice. Whether in the grand scheme of things, and when you're looking at the Jolbad Warscroll Battalion ability, which is quite cool, giving you run and charge, whether you also need an extra movement for your destruction move at the start, I don't know. And so being able to go destruction move to move forward, run, move, then your movement phase, then run, and then charge. Whether you need all that, I don't know. It's handy to get you really in the thick of it quickly. Whether you need to be there that quick, I'm not so sure. I think run and charge isn't that important, or the extra hero phase move at the start is all that important. I don't think you need both. One or the other's fine, in which case you can switch to Allegiance ability. Got command traits in here as well. There's some quite nice ones. Massive Bulk gives you general +1 wound. Everwinter's Mantle. You can re-roll the dice when you roll it on the chart, so that's quite cool, as long as your general's alive. Avalanche Voice. You can add 8 inch to the command range of any of your command abilities your general uses, and there's some more of them in here. Number 4 is Famed Hunter. You can re-roll all hits of 1 made for your general's melee and missile weapons. So it does not apply for your mount. So if he's riding a Thundertusk, you're not going to be re-rolling that 2 to hit to do 6 mortal wounds, I'm afraid. Number 5 is Beast Eater. You can re-roll wounds for your general when making attacks against a monster. Now that one doesn't say not your mount. So if you're on a Stonehorn, you're attacking a monster, I think the whole model is going to do it then. Number 6 is Fearsome Leader. Enemy units that are within 3 subtract 1 from the bravery. So that's quite a cool chart. And then you've got your magical artifacts as well. I'm not going to go through all of these, but I'll put them up on the screen now if you're watching YouTube. They're in the show notes for the podcast. But there's some of the normal stuff you see. There's an elixir of the Frostworm, which you drink and you roll on a chart. Depending on, you can take a mortal wound yourself, or you can dish mortal wounds out to enemy units. There's a pelt that heals wounds every turn. I think it heals 1 wound on 1, 2, or 3, or 4 plus it heals D3, which is nice again on those big monsters with lots of wounds, bringing wounds back, keeping them alive, especially on the Stonehorn, because you're halving your damage against the Stonehorn. Then there's some magic weapons and a few other bits. So that's the magical artifacts, and that's pretty much the new stuff in the book. Everything else, as you can see in here, is just new. I mean, anyone who's listening to this, it's probably all up on the app by now as well, the Age of SIgmar app. So if you want to kind of follow through what I'm talking about as I'm talking about them, you can check them out on there. What's interesting, there's also a Warscroll Battalion, which includes the Iron Jaws. So you get the Mournfang packs, and you also get the Gore Grunters as well. And they've got a cool rule which follows a bit of story where they're always trying to outdo each other. So if they're near each other when they're in combat, they're going to be getting bonuses because they're trying extra hard to try and outdo the other units. That's quite nice. And then they've got 6 Warscrolls now to cover the Stonehorn and the Thundertusk. Whereas before it was just the 2. You've now got your Frostlord, which can ride either. He gets 13 wounds on both of these. He's got a Frost Spear, which is 3s and 3s to hit and wound, and it does 3 damage, so it's quite vicious. They've still got the things like the Earth Shattering Charge on the Stonehorn. The Thundertusk still does the shooting attack, which does 6 mortal wounds. The command ability, you can re-roll charge for all friendly Beastclaw Raiders within 14 inches, so that's quite nice. And if he's got that Allegiance ability, which gives him an extra 8 inches on that, you can really spread your force, and he can be up to 22 inches when he does that command ability, which is very nice. Then you've got your Huskars, which are like your second in command of heroes. They're still a hero, so you can give them your magic weapon. These have only got 12 wounds. They've got different damage output profile. He doesn't hit quite as well. He's got a chain trap and a harpoon launcher instead of the Frost Spear. But it's still pretty tasty in combat, both of these. They don't actually get command abilities, but what they do have is they've got a Blood Vulture, which makes an attack, and then they've got a Line Breaker ability if he's on Stonehorn, and a Blizzard Speaker ability if he's on the Thundertusks. The Blizzard Speaker ability, in your hero phase, a Huskard can attempt to harness the strange wintry magic. select one Beastclaw Raider unit within 18 and roll a dice. Add one if there's Thundertusks within 18 as well. On a 4 or more, you can give them an ability. So Winter's Endurance heals D3 wounds, and Winter's Strength lets you re-roll 1s to wound until your next hero phase. So that's quite a nice little buff that the Huskar and Thundertusk can pass out. And it's cool that the Huskar on the 2 different beasts has different abilities, whereas the Stonehorn, the Frostlord on the Stonehorn, has the same abilities whichever he rides. Well, that's quite interesting, I thought. How the guys are kitted out a bit different depending on what they're riding, if they're Huskars, but the Lord's the same. And then the interesting one is, you've got Beast Riders riding the monsters as well. And these are, like I said before, these are battle line if they're taken as part of a Beastclaw Raider army. And because you've got the Behemoth special rule in pitch battle, you can only take 4 in an army, but you could take a Frostlord and 3 Beast Riders, and that's your battle line sorted. So these have got 12 wounds again. They're a bit cheaper in points in match play, and they've still got most of the abilities, but they don't have the Winter's Embrace on the Thundertusk. So that's it really. Other than that, it's the same stuff that was in this sort of part of the previous compendium. So you've got your Hunter, Sabertooths and Yetis, and your Mournfangs as well. I don't think the rules have changed much. The Mournfangs have got the Gargant Hackerback, which is basically a great weapon, gives them 3 damage. The Icebrow Hunter, I'm not sure if this was a rule he had before, but he's got a nice rule with a spear. So if you do a run, you can still shoot, and if you do run, you shoot your weapon twice as far. Basically, he's having a run up and he's launching his javelin. It shoots twice as far and it does twice as much damage, which is really nice. So that is the Beastclaw Raiders. Now, what's really cool about this is there's no new models. They've rejigged how you build your monsters. So your Frostlord is basically the guy with the spear, which is currently, I think, the Stonehorn Rider. And then currently the Thundertusk has 2 riders. And now you can put both of them riders on either, the spear guy on either, and I think the harpoon chap guy on his own on either, and that sort of makes up which kits the different models are. So the Frostlord is the Frostlord, the Huskar is the trap guy, and the pair them together are the Beast Riders. So that distinguishes the differences, and it's quite a nice way of doing things and just getting some extra variety into the faction. Now, what's also really cool is there's a new box coming out now. I think this is in the White Dwarf that's out, released this weekend as this episode's gone up. It's been all over Twitter this week, which has been great. It's £135. You get 2 of the monster kits, 2 boxes of Mournfangs, so that's 4 Mournfang. I think you get a Hunter and 6 Sabertusks and 1 unit of 3 Yetis. It's about 14 models for 135 quid. Obviously, if you're buying that from Element Games or somewhere like that, Firestorm Games, those sort of places, you can get up to 20, maybe 25% off that as well. And it's about 1,600 points in match play, depending on how you build your kit. So if you're building them as 2 Frostlords and then using the other stuff as your battle line units, then you can just about get through with an army. And you know, maybe buy 1 more Stonehorn or something like that, a 3rd monster, because they're about 400 points each for the fully loaded ones. And that's it. So for about 150 quid, maybe even less with discount, you can get a full 2,000 point match play army. And there's a very good chance this is going to be my next army. I'm really enjoying the Chaos Dwarf still, despite what you'll hear on next episode, because we've already recorded that one, of me having a grumble about the Forge World points. I am going to stick with the Chaos Dwarfs, but I am also itching to do an Age of SIgmar army, so something like Iron Jaws or Beastclaw Raiders, and I've really got my eye on these. I like the look of the Stonehorns. I think the model is really aggressive and aggro, and you could make some really cool lists. I've also seen someone playing 4 Thundertusks and 120 Goblins for a pure destruction army, and that looks a bit brutal. I don't think I'll be going down that route, but yeah, overall, I'm really impressed with what they've done with the Beastclaw Raiders. The change of the backstory to suit the Mortal Realms is really nice. The whole story of them being nomads and rampaging constantly on the lookout for a fight, still worshipping Gork and Morka, and how they tied that in, saying they kind of follow him and they believe in him, but they don't outwardly worship him like the orcs do. It's a really cool way of tying it in, and yeah, I think it's a great addition to the rest of the Battletomes. It's certainly on par with Flesh Eater Courts and the Bone Splitters. They were really excellent. Okay, well, I think that wraps this things up. As I've just alluded to, I've already recorded the next episode. I was joined by Mark and Steve. We haven't been together for a while to do a show, so we all got together and we've talked about what we found with our armies in match play. So basically we went through what we used at South Coast GT and converted the points to the General's Handbook, talked about how we're going to change our armies to suit the new scenarios, and if there's any changes required, how it affects us and how it doesn't. I think Mark said his was exactly the same, but we covered all that on the next week's episode, so you can check that out. I don't know if it'll be on YouTube yet. It's about an hour and a half long, so it might not make the YouTube show, so if you're watching, you'll have to wait another week, and I'll be back with another episode. In the meantime, if you want to get in touch, you can contact me at baddice_podcast on Twitter, or head on over to the Grand Alliance Age of SIgmar forums. That's tga.community, where you can chat all things Age of SIgmar. There's, I think, about 1,500 registered users on there. There's loads of conversations going on every day. There's some excellent threads gone up recently as well. I've seen Terry Pipe from the Facehammer podcast has started a really in-depth look at what's going on with Chaos and their shooting troops. So if you want to make a shooty Chaos gunline type army, he's doing a bit of an analysis on what units you've got access to, what you can take, and what your options are. So that's really cool to read. So that's the Grand Alliance community. So check it out. One final thing to note, check out scenerydice.co.uk. I've got dice for sale. They are the best Age of SIgmar counters you can get your hands on, and I'll put that out there to the Mortal Realms who have got their own set of tokens. Basically, they are dice which lets you mark and your terrain during the game. So if you want a mystical terrain piece, you can roll the dice to see what type of terrain it is and leave the dice on the terrain. It's really useful. I've also got buff dice, which shows you if you've added an ability to a unit, +1 save, a command ability, reroll hits or wounds or anything like that, got 2 different dice that you can leave by your units with a total of 12 different abilities that you can show what's in effect. So you can see all that over at scenerydice.co.uk and also find it in the show notes. Okay guys, thanks for watching and listening, and I'll see you all next time.